It started pretty young as well. I think watching a lot of documentaries, particularly with David Attenborough, I think as a young age that kind of really piqued my interest. There's a wider world out there to explore. And
A family bonding event began as a quiet royal tradition, a gentle Sunday afternoon on Windsor's grounds where children could run and adults could watch. It was meant to be a safe, warm day. Tartan blankets spread on the grass, a picnic, golden corgis bouncing around, and youngsters from different branches of the family invited to play together. King Charles had wanted the day. The Queen Consort had agreed. The idea was simple: to stitch a few loose edges back together and show the public a softer side of the family. For Prince William and Princess Catherine, it was simply an afternoon where their children could be kids. Prince George arrived in his usual calm, carrying himself with the quiet composure that many had already noticed. He was growing into his role with a shy power, taught from an early age to be polite, measured, and aware of what his future might ask of him. He had attended such gatherings before, always under his mother's careful eye. But this time, something different happened. What began as an ordinary game of football among the children quickly turned darker. A boy from Camilla's family, a grandson who had been slowly introduced into royal life, began to tease and then to taunt in ways that cut deeper than play. At first, it was small, a shove, a mean joke. Then the taunts grew more precise. The boy repeated things he had heard at adult tables, phrases picked up from whispers and half-jokes that are never meant for small ears. He mocked George's walk, poked at his training, and eventually asked aloud, "Do you think you're better than everyone because of your silly crown?" The words seemed older than the boy who said them. The group of children froze for a moment. An adult moved toward them, but words can land faster than a grown-up can step in. George tried to leave the field and was pursued. He was mocked for his role and for his family. And worst of all, he was dragged into an attack on his late grandmother, Diana, in a way that felt like a wound handed down from adult grudges. An aide later told a senior staffer that the taunts sounded like a replay of the home talk the boy had absorbed. When George ran away, a bodyguard quietly escorted him out of sight and helped him away from the noise, protecting him from cameras and from further mockery. He ended up in the car with tears on his cheeks and his shoulders stooped. It was not the kind of day Prince William and Princess Catherine had expected. Kate noticed him at once at Adelaide Cottage. She saw the watery eyes, the silence, the small stoop. She sat beside him and asked, "Tell me exactly what happened." The child answered in the plain, earnest way of a young boy telling the truth. He described the name calling, the ridicule, the deliberate cruelty. The words were short, but their meaning was full. Kate listened. Her face, usually composed and diplomatic, hardened into something quieter and stranger, an icy stillness of a mother who had been crossed. She was not a woman who shouted. She was a woman who made her will known without loudness. That night, she canceled public engagements and kept her son close. William was told he had spent a life learning where to stand between loyalty to family and the duty to protect what mattered. He had endured private pain known to few, but when his son came home in tears, something else took over. He and Kate held a private conversation that one insider called the most emotionally intense in years. Kate did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She simply said she would not accept it, and she told William, "You're the heir. Start acting like it." William listened and agreed. He knew, more than most, the cost of leaving injustice to pass under the carpet. This time, he would not stay silent. The next morning, a short, crisp message was delivered to the king's private secretary. There had been an incident involving Prince George. William and Catherine requested a private audience with His Majesty within 24 hours. King Charles met them and heard their account. He expressed sympathy. He heard Camilla's initial dismissal of the event as childish squabbling. She was reported to have said that children would forget in a week. But Kate did not want forgetfulness. She wanted record. She wanted protection. She wanted a line that could not be blurred. Charles, wearied and careful, understood both sides. He did not overrule his son. He listened and, at least privately, did not move to block William's next steps. William returned to Kensington and acted. He called his senior team and paced the floor of his study. He set a decision down in clear terms. Camilla's grandson, the boy who had mocked George and echoed adult scorn, would not be considered for any future honorary royal title. There would be no slow integration into the royal circle, no special invitations to family events where William's children were present, not even small ceremonial roles. William declared there would be no second chances. "My son does not require an apology," he told a startled aide. "He requires protection." The message was simple. Respect, service, and honor mattered more than proximity. Titles would not be handed out as consolation. The palace staff felt the shock immediately. William had acted without the long consultations that normally shape such matters. He had drawn a line himself and asked the institution to respect it. Some courtiers were surprised. Others felt the move was necessary. Camilla, who had quietly sought to bring her family closer to the monarchy over many years, was furious. She had hoped that small steps, school invitations, honorary spots at events, the gentle inclusion of her children and grandchildren would soften the distance she had long felt. She had long fought to give her family modest affiliation and the chance to be seen. Now, the dream was broken in one swift direction. Camilla confronted the king. She stormed into his private study carrying the formal note. Her voice, seldom raised in public, echoed down the corridor. "He humiliated us," she said. "He embarrassed me." She insisted the boy was a child and that the punishment was too harsh. Charles, balancing tenderness for his wife and the long memory of royal duty, listened and said something that shocked her. He would not overrule William. He told her gently that William was protecting his child and that the decision must stand. Camilla left shaken, pale, and angry. She canceled a public appearance with a claimed migraine. Staff noticed the change in her manner at dinner. She did not speak and refused to say William's name. News of the incident leaked in parts. Rumors seeded themselves in the press and social feeds. Reporters pieced together fragments, and within a day the public began to see the outline. A short headline spoke louder than the palace intended. Prince George mocked by step-relative. William responds with title ban. Social media erupted. A surge of messages poured toward the Prince and Princess of Wales, praising William for protecting his son. People shared stories about their own children and about the pain of cruelty. The phrase Team George trended. Sketches of a young George with a miniature crown were shared as small symbols of public sympathy. Polls showed William and Kate's approval rising while Camilla's warmth in public opinion cooled. Courtiers shifted their steps in corridors and talked in softer voices. But the scene that mattered most was private. Kate sat with George, reading, holding him close. She felt both the sting of the episode and the relief of action. William walked with his son in a different way afterward, not to avoid cameras, but to give the boy the slow time children need. They spoke, simply, about being kind and what it meant to be seen and to bear the attention they would one day inherit. William taught George how to hold his head with dignity while remaining gentle. Camilla spent the days in the quiet that follows anger. She had fought for tiny ceremonial prizes, for a place at certain events, and for gradual recognition for her children and grandchildren. She had thought her family's slow integration was only a matter of patience. That belief did not prepare her for a decision that reduced the prospects of her grandson. She felt personal humiliation, and she felt betrayed by the neat, swift nature of William's public assertion. Those around her watched an old strategy of patience break against a younger generation's raw, protective will. Within the palace, staff tried to manage the fallout. Invitations were rewritten discreetly. Seating plans were adjusted. Family gatherings became carefully arranged. The boy who had spoken the cruel words found himself awkwardly isolated in private moments. He was a child who had made a mistake, but the mistake echoed adult talk and had consequences. The message was not exile in the deepest sense. It was a boundary, respect, or distance. For the boy who had been on a hopeful path toward greater involvement in royal life, the retreat was sudden and painful. Some inside the institution supported William's move. They argued that tradition should not cover for behavior that degraded another child. One long-serving advisor quietly said the monarchy needed strength and clear boundaries. Another senior official, remembering years of complications left untreated, believed William's action might set a modern standard. Others warned that public family rifts could erode what the palace needed, a united face to the public. That tension was raw and real. But William had seen the stakes in the small face of his son that night, and he acted from a father's certainty rather than a courtier's calculation. Outside the palace, the public debate was fierce and fast. Many praised William's choice, saying a father's duty to his child should be absolute. They sent notes and letters to the family, some praising Kate's quiet strength and William's readiness to make hard decisions. Others expressed sympathy for Camilla and her grandchild, arguing that a child's thoughtless words should not rewrite a life. The tabloids fanned the heat. Opinion pieces argued over the future of the monarchy, with some writers claiming the event marked a turn toward a modern moral standard, and others warning of a new era of public family friction. A week later, a modest Sunday church appearance proved to be one of the most telling moments. William, Kate, George, and Charlotte stepped from the car and were met by a crowd who had watched the story unfold. The reaction was not theatrical or staged. It was a quiet, warm applause. People had rallied quietly to the view that parents protecting their children deserved support. Kate leaned down and squeezed George's hand. For a boy who had been hurt, it was a small human reassurance that meant more than any headline. For the boy who had caused the pain, lessons followed in the private rooms. He was spoken to by his grandparents and his parents in ways that tried to blend disappointment with care. Grandparents can teach very sharply while remaining loving, and that balance was attempted. He was told that words can break and leave marks that last. He was told that being part of a public family carried responsibilities different from those of other children. Whether he fully understood all the consequences would take time, but the lesson had been set. As weeks passed, the raw edges began to smooth into a new normal. Invitations to events changed quietly. Where once a small ceremonial role might have gone to Camilla's grandchildren, those plans were reconsidered. The palace office moved with that old, deliberate speed that keeps the business of monarchy running. Yet the decision William made began to read as more than a single father's reaction. It became, in many eyes, a new standard. Titles could not be given as consolation when real harm was done. Privilege would not be extended without a demonstration of respect. The monarchy, in this telling, would demand that behavior match honor. Camilla did not withdraw from public life. She continued other duties and tried to repair the damage in her own quiet way. She wrote letters and made private calls. She tried to find ways to keep doors open without public conflict. The grief of lost hope for easy inclusion was real, yet she balanced it with steady acts that kept her visible and engaged. The king, meanwhile, did not display a public battle. He remained in his role, listening and trying to hold fragile things together. Privately, he felt pulled between loyalty to his wife and the sense that a son was making an argument about the next generation. He chose restraint and let William's line go forward. Inside the palace, staff adjusted. Courtiers who had been backing Camilla's small, patient campaign to integrate her family now saw the cost. Others who had been wary of that campaign felt vindicated. The family found small new rhythms, careful planning of gatherings, limits on certain joint appearances, and protective seating at events. The boy who had spoken cruel words would still be a grandson. The longer-term hopes for honorary positions might still exist someday if behavior changed and respect was shown. But for now, William's boundary held. For Prince George, the incident became part of a private education. He learned that another child could be cruel because of words picked up from adults. He learned that adults could act to protect him, and that protection sometimes meant clear, hard choices. He learned, too, that being part of a line of succession carries obligations, and that parents could and would defend him. Those are heavy lessons for a child, but they were taught slowly, with kindness. He kept playing games, and he still ran on lawns, but the incident left behind a quiet strength and the knowledge that his parents would fight for him. The public debate continued in the papers and on social feeds. Some commentators called it a watershed, a moment where a future monarch acted like a father first and a prince second. Others warned that public family rifts could leave scars on an institution that relies on unity. In the palace corridors, staffers said both things might be true. The truth is often both. William's decision had consequences beyond one child's hurt. It made the family ask what it would stand for in the years ahead. Months later, the dust had settled in many ways. The boy's future was not sealed in stone. Boundaries can be revisited when sincere change happens. Apologies could be made privately. Behavior could be altered, and time could soften tensions. For now, the palace lived with a new rule. Titles would not be automatic. Respect had to be earned. The monarchy had been nudged toward a standard where the public could see children protected and boundaries enforced. The small scene on the lawn, a child teased, another child in tears, a mother who would not let it pass, remained the memory that lingered longest. It was a private hurt that forced a public response. It forced adults to choose between convenience and conviction. William and Kate chose the latter. For them, a child's emotional safety mattered more than smooth public relations. That choice rewrote small parts of palace life. At the heart of the matter were simple human things: a mother's instinct to comfort, a father's instinct to defend, and a grandmother's hope for her family. They collided and then realigned. The family continued, imperfect and human, and the palace learned something new: that honor is hollow if it does not meet behavior, and that crowns mean little if the people beneath them do not learn to be kind. The monarchy moved forward with a new precedent, one made not of ceremony but of a father's clear voice, saying what he would not allow.